So I just found out that apparently America beat the Nazis using balloon animals. Kind of. Picture this, a dozen dudes on the front line and all they have is rubber and a bicycle pump. No guns, no weapons. Their mission isn't to shoot the Germans, it's to get shot at. So they set up a whole fake artillery battalion. I'm talking a dozen cannons, except they're basically just inflatable pool toys. None of it's real. They're popping flash canisters to make it look like they're blasting shells, and somehow the Nazis are completely buying it. Meanwhile, a mile behind the rubber cannons were the real cannons, shooting real shells. The Nazis though were too busy unloading on the balloons to realize what was actually going on. How none of them realized that every time they shot a cannon, it kinda just deflated into a sad pile of rubber, I have no idea. But apparently it worked. They say the pen is mightier than the sword, but apparently a bicycle pump with a rubber cannon is even better. Oh, and by the way, these guys weren't even soldiers, not in the way you're thinking. You know, big macho man decked in armor and a big ass gun. Nah, these guys were designers and painters and sound engineers, regular old Joe Schmoes who were recruited into what they called the Ghost Army. Their job was pretty much to pretend to be an army, so the enemy fired at them instead of the real army. Which also makes it the only job ever where faking your resume was actually seen as a good thing. But rubber cannons were just the beginning, the test mission, the proof of concept. It went much, much deeper. I'm talking rubber tanks, made up radio transmissions, giant speakers blasting pre-recorded war sounds, fake tire tracks, fake headquarters, fake division patches, fake laundry lines. These people were hanging up hundreds of pairs of underwear to dry to make it look like an entire army was stationed there. They even had inflatable soldiers, although apparently most of them stayed indoors for unrelated reasons. These guys were fully committed to the bit. At a certain point, you gotta wonder if pretending to be an army was honestly more work than just being an army. But apparently it was working, so they took this traveling circus show for operations all over Europe. Oh, and the name of one of these operations? Operation Brest. Yeah, you can tell these artists were pretty lonely. One of them even called Brest the biggest piece of action I ever saw in World War II. Not because he was a few hundred yards from the front line, but because he was surrounded by latex and on a mission for Brest. And this wasn't even the only suspiciously named operation. There was also the Battle of the Bulge and missions in Hard-On, Try Her, and Wees Banging. They even came into Nancy at one point. At this point, I'm not even writing jokes anymore, I'm literally just reading the map. Anyway, all of this led to the Ghost Army's biggest mission yet, Operation Viersen. By March of 1945, America had already pushed Germany all the way to the Rhine River, which was basically Germany's last giant do not enter sign before the Americans could kinda just walk right into their country. But crossing a river while people are actively trying to kill you isn't exactly easy. The Germans knew the Americans had to cross, they just didn't know from where, so they kept their eyes peeled. The Americans slowly moved the real troops into position during the night. Soldiers, boats, trucks, artillery, everything they needed to launch an attack on the Nazis. But most importantly, they did it quietly. They could absolutely not let the Nazis figure out their position. While the real troops gathered here, another group of soldiers gathered here, the Ghost Army. And their mission was basically the exact opposite. Their orders were pretty much be as suspicious as humanly possible. While the real army hid, the Ghost Army rolled into Viersen making all the noise in the world, acting like they were preparing for the biggest river crossing since Moses parted the sea. They had trucks driving up and down roads all day, radio chatter impersonating real army divisions, speakers blasting war prep sounds, a whole ass fake airstrip. And apparently they made this airstrip so real that an actual American observation plane accidentally landed there before immediately being told to get lost. And of course, they couldn't forget their balloons. They had balloon tanks, balloon anti-tank guns, balloon cannons, balloon trucks, balloon jeeps, even balloon planes. It was the greatest Macy's Day Parade ever. 1,100 men somehow made themselves look like an army of over 30,000. It was the biggest bluff in human history, pretending like you're holding pocket aces when you're really holding Uno cards. For the next week, the Ghost Army kept up this charade while the real army made their final preparations. Until finally, they were ready. March 23rd, the real army begins their invasion. They kick things off the traditional way, by blowing the absolute hell out of everything. Thousands of shells pouring down on the Nazis while they set up giant smoke screens across the river. Between the artillery fire, smoke, and all the fake buildup down south, the Germans still couldn't tell where the real attack was happening. By the time they figured it out, the Americans already took control of the German side of the river. Back on the American side, engineers now started to build a temporary bridge across the river. They brought over tanks, trucks, artillery, all real, no balloons. For days, the Germans had been watching fake tanks, fake artillery, fake radio, a fake army. They were expecting an attack from the south that never came. After the battle, the Americans found German intelligence maps, and on those maps, the fake divisions were marked exactly where the Ghost Army was pretending to be. The Nazis were genuinely fooled by balloons.